Today we're going to talk about the neuroscience of happiness, how happiness works in the brain, and what the relationship is between something that sounds kind of new age, which is mindfulness and meditation, and why neuroscientists are very fascinated by this subject. So before we officially start, I just want to define this term, because for some people it can feel very new age and mystical, the idea of mindfulness. So what is mindfulness? The cliche version of it is be here now. And it's just the idea of being in the present moment. That's what mindfulness is, just to get that out of the way. It's really the opposite of mind wandering, being present. So why is there so much interest in mindfulness? It's a buzzword. It was on the cover of Time magazine. I think that this cartoon kind of sums it up. It says, there are only 2 times I feel stress, day and night. And I think that's how a lot of us can feel sometimes. And so mindfulness seems to play a role in this process. So I want to tell you a unique study that was done very recently at Harvard. It was unique for a couple reasons. Number one, they used a cell phone. And because they used a cell phone, 18,000 people were in this study. It was a huge study. People from all walks of life, all ages, all occupations, all income levels, a huge range of people. And if you enrolled in this study, you would get a text message on your cell phone at random parts of the day. And that text message would ask you 3 questions. Number 1, what were you doing right before you got this text message? Question 2, how are you feeling right now on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being terrible, 10 being fantastic. And question 3, right before you got this text, whatever you were doing, were you focused on what you were doing, or was your mind wandering? And they found some interesting things. Number 1, 50% of the time, people's minds were wandering. So what does that mean? It means half of you aren't listening to a word I'm saying right now. But they also found this interesting relationship between mind wandering and happiness. And it was not what you would expect. You would expect that our brain would be designed so that if you're not enjoying what you're doing, if you're bored or you're unhappy, what would your mind do? Wander to a tropical island, to a vacation, someone you want to be with. Turned out to be the opposite in most cases. When people's minds wandered, they wandered to unpleasant things, unhappy thoughts, stressful thoughts. So much so that even if people were commuting to work, which almost everybody doesn't enjoy, but if you were commuting to work and you were focused on your commute, you were happier than if you were commuting to work and your mind was wandering while you're commuting to work. That's how powerful this relationship was. This brought up a lot of questions. And the question is, that's a great study, but can we measure happiness in the brain? We can argue, what is happiness? Is it this amount of money? Is it this amount of friends? What is happiness? But in neuroscience, because of the advent of the functional MRI, the ability to look into somebody's brain, we can jump ahead of a lot of those questions. And we can start to ask, what's happening in the brain when someone's happy?